We're talking today with Dale Brown of St. John's, Michigan, and the interviewer is James Smither of the Grand Valley State University Veterans History Project. Okay, and Dale, can you start us off with some background, and to begin with, where and when were you born?
I was born in Lansing, Michigan, February 26, 1948.
Okay, did you grow up in Lansing or did you move around?
I did. I grew up in Lansing. Pretty much stayed in that area all my life.
Okay, and what did your family do for a living while you were growing up?
My father was a plasterer, and my mother was a homemaker. She had to be. There was 14 of us kids.
Wow. And where were you in that sequence?
I was the third oldest.
Okay. And then when did you finish high school?
I finished high school in 1966, graduated from Grand Ledge High School.
Okay. And what did you want to do then once you got out of high school?
Well, I went to work with General Motors, and I didn't really have a lot of plans at that time, but the Vietnam War was had been going for quite some time, and I thought that I might be called to duty there. I was in the draft, and I chose to enlist in the Air Force to get out of Lansing and go out and do what I need to do.
Okay.
To serve the country.
All right. Now, why did you choose the Air Force rather than another branch?
I thought if I was going to be going to Vietnam, I'd rather have a choice of where I was going to be, rather than be put out on a point somewhere and exposed to constant fire. I wanted to choose my path.
Okay, so you're kind of aware enough of what was going on in Vietnam to have that as kind of conscious decision. Okay. Now, at the time you were enlisting in the Air Force, were they very picky about who they took, or did you just show up and get in?
Yeah, you had to take a test and qualify, and I managed to get in there. I know now today it's even more strict. It's very difficult to get in.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have got in based on today's standards.
All right, because it was a kind of a popular decision to make, and there were people who were trying to get in at certain points and couldn't.
Yeah.
And you're a little. So when do you actually enlist then?
I enlisted in May of '67.
Okay, and then having done that, where do they send you first for training?
First went to Lackland Air Force Base. That's where they train all the recruits for the Air Force, pretty much.
Okay, San Antonio, Texas?
San Antonio.
All right.
That was my first duty station.
Okay. Now, what did the training actually consist of?
A lot of physical training, mental training, and educational training, learning what you're supposed to be doing within the Air Force and how you fit in there. But the main thing was the physical and to get you in with the unit, to get you acclimated to that.
Okay. And how much sort of spit and polish stuff was there?
Quite a bit, a lot. A lot of situations where we had to be very, very clean with. We had inspections, and the sergeants wasn't happy with the things, so he made us do the whole floor over again. And I think we used toilet paper to buff it.
Mm-hmm.
He was pretty adamant that the place was a filthy mess, and it really wasn't, but that's what they did.
Now, to what extent did you understand what they were doing at the time?
I just knew I was there to do what they told me to do, and that's what I tried to do.
Okay. And how easy or hard was it for you to adjust to being in the military?
It was a little problematic because I just lost my father a year before, and so I didn't really. I just knew that I was gonna do this, whatever it took. I saw too many guys that weren't able to do it, and I knew that I could do that.
All right. Now, among the class or the group that you're training with, what proportion of them finished on schedule?
I think probably 90%.
Okay.
Yeah, there was about 10% that fell out for various reasons.
Okay. And were you in pretty good shape physically when you went in?
Actually, I was kind of light, but I was in better shape when I got out of basic training.
All right. And how long did the basic training last?
I believe it was about 6 weeks.
Okay. Now, at that point, what did they do with you?
I went home, came home for a leave, and then had to report to my next duty station, which was my technical school
Okay.
for advanced training.
And was that back at Lackland or somewhere else?
That was, I went to Chanute Air Force Base in Illinois.
Okay. And what kind of training did you get there?
I got training on B-52s and KC-135 aircraft, hydraulic training.
Mm-hmm.
I was trained in hydraulics.
Okay. And can you describe for lay audience? Most people know what a B-52 is, but what's a KC-135?
That's it's like a Boeing 707, but it's a refueling plane.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a big flying gas station.
Right. Okay. And about how long do you stay there?
I'm trying to think, I think I was there a couple months.
Okay. Now, when you're there, do you just stay on the base, or is there?
Yes.
Okay.
I was able to come home on weekends sometimes.
But that's like Rantoul, Illinois.
Yes. Yep.
So there's not a whole lot there.
No, not a whole lot. At least I wasn't aware, but I was always the guy that wanted to be home,
Mm-hmm.
whenever I could, because the family was important.
Yeah. All right. So that go through that, and then what kind of guys were training along with you? Did you notice much about them, or where they were from, or anything else?
I didn't really get a whole lot involved. We just partnered up and worked together, and I didn't really get a chance to talk a lot with them about their various backgrounds and stuff, because we were all focused on our training and getting through it and getting out of there.
And in the basic and in the technical training here, was pretty much everybody white, or did you have some black guys or Hispanics in the mix?
Yeah, we had some of everything. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you get through this next stage, and that did they send you for further training, or do they go to a base now?
Then they shipped me to KI Sawyer Air Base.
Okay. And where is that?
That's in Marquette, Michigan, or up in that area.
Okay.
Actually, Gwinn, Michigan.
Okay. And was that a Strategic Air Command base
Yes,
then?
it was. Yeah.
Okay. And now, do you actually get to apply your training once you get there?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what was going on while you were there?
That was a nuclear base, so they had nuclear-ready B-52s all the time. They were doing a lot of takeoffs and landings and different things that they were doing, and we were responsible for the maintenance of the hydraulic systems. And that's what we did. It got a little bit difficult in the wintertime because cold weather affects hydraulics pretty much, and leaks appear, and if you go out and recycle the component, you generally would warm it up and things would go away. So, but that being an alert, a Strategic Air Command base, which was always ready for nuclear war, they didn't mess around with that stuff. If you couldn't stop the leak, they would pull it off and put another one on.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, during what time frame were you at Sawyer?
I was there in '67 till actually '67 till I went to Vietnam. But there was a short period in there. In 1968 September, I went to Guam to support the Vietnam.
Okay.
And I worked B-52 models over there. They were D models. We had H models, I think, at our base, KI Sawyer.
Okay. And was there any practical difference in terms of what you had to do with them?
Same thing as maintenance. It was the intensity of it all. Working 12 hours a day and round the clock. They were doing round the clock bombings.
All right. Now, while you're at Sawyer there, you get there in '67 and so forth. You go on, and before they send you over to Guam for that spell, how much attention did you pay to sort of news of the war and that kind of thing, or did you just focus on your job?
I didn't think much about Vietnam at that time because I was, focused on where I was at and what I was doing there.
Was there an expectation that you'd eventually rotate over to Vietnam, or did you think you were going to stay in Michigan the whole time?
I wasn't sure when I went to Guam. I thought, that was going to be my duty, and so I came back from there. And the night I got back, the guys told me that I had orders for Vietnam. It was kind of a shock. I'd kind of like catch my breath there,
Right.
Just come back from overseas duty. But,
Okay. Tell me a little bit about sort of what your daily life or routine was like while you were at Sawyer.
reporting to duty every morning and doing whatever hydraulic repair work needed to be done. If there was components that needed to be rebuilt, we'd rebuild them. And if there's components that need to be taken care of on the aircraft, we'd go out and change them. A lot of brakes, and the B-52 had a hydraulic controlled fire pack for the rear gun, and we had to maintain that also. But all the components of the hydraulic systems on the aircraft was a daily thing, and that's what we usually did.
And was this largely a day job for you, or were there night shifts at times?
No, I worked just strictly days there.
Okay. Now, during the time you were there, did they ever have any kind of alerts or things where they kind of changed the routine on you, either as a drill or?
They had alerts, yeah. They call those quite frequently. And you had to be there. You couldn't be somewhere else. And I messed that up once. I came home on a weekend and they called me, told me there's an alert, and I didn't get back. Mm-hmm. And I got in a little bit of trouble over that.
Well, it takes a little while to get up to Marquette from
Yeah.
Lansing, so that can certainly happen. But I mean that in a way, because they can't announce ahead of time that they're going to have an alert or whatever.
I had standby duty that weekend, and I knew it, but I came home and they called the alert, and so I didn't get back.
All right. And so what's the penalty for that?
Well, it could have been court-martial.
Okay.
But my sergeant was understanding, and he knew that at that time I was headed for Vietnam. Mm-hmm. So I think he kind of gave me a break. Okay,
so that was late enough, and I guess that's the old question: what are they going to do? Send me to Vietnam?
Yeah.
And you're already going.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. what kind of people were on the crew you were working with? Did you have a lot of lifers, or were they mostly young guys like you?
At KI, sorry.
Yeah.
Mostly young guys. We had long-term guys that were the shop chiefs. They were in charge of that. So there was probably 2 or 3 of the higher-ranking NCOs. Okay. But mostly it was us younger guys who were doing all the work.
Okay. Now, when the orders for Vietnam came, was that normally just individually? They weren't sending groups together?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it came individual.
Okay, so you got your call, and now what's the process for now getting you out to Vietnam? All right, so let's talk a little bit more about Guam first. You get sent out to Guam. What was that base like, and what was your life like while you were there?
It was tropical, and I remember going down the side of we'd go down the side of the mountain when we had a little time off. Take a bus down to the side of the mountain to the beach, and we could enjoy the beach, and that was nice. And although I did get hit with a Portuguese man of war while I was there, that kind of woke me up. Mm-hmm. But that was a daily routine of maintenance of the aircraft, and that's pretty much where I was at. There was 2 Japanese soldiers came out of the jungle and surrendered from World War II while I was there, and I thought that was interesting. Mm-hmm. And just the daily constant routine of watching these aircraft take off, and you could watch them take off at the end of the runway, but you couldn't see that they got up okay because it was like 400 feet up, and they would a lot of times would drop down a little bit, and then they'd come back up, and you'd see them come back up over the horizon, so you knew they made it as far as coming up, taking off.
Kind of like launching them off of an oversized aircraft carrier.
Yeah, that's what it looked like. Yeah.
Okay. Were you aware of any of them not coming back?
Yes. Yeah.
So was that? And how would you find out about that? Or
there's just word came down through the guys in charge that we lost this one or that one.
Mm-hmm. Now, was that a regular occurrence or just occasional?
Occasional, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Well, how long were you actually there?
I was there 4 months.
Okay. That's a substantial chunk of time. So that's the latter part of '68?
Yeah, so from September to, I flew back New Year's Eve.
Okay. All right. Now, at that point, you were assuming that your overseas was essentially done?
Well, I hadn't even given it a thought. I just, I was just kind of shocked when these guys told me that. I thought they were kidding with me.
All right, so you've gone your 4 months from Guam. You get back, okay, you're going to Vietnam.
Yeah.
And then how long was it before you actually went over to Vietnam?
Well, I got back right after the first of the year, and then in March I had to go down to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, to train for the F-100.
Okay, so it's not, because the B-52s weren't based in Vietnam to begin with. They were elsewhere, Guam or Thailand or wherever. Okay, and so now describe the new aircraft you're working on.
The F-100 is a fighter plane, and it's a lot smaller than B-52. So everything's just kind of downsized, and it's more compact. It's a little tighter working area and things like that. yeah, it's just learning the systems, you know, where they're at.
Okay. Now, were you still doing mainly hydraulics, or did you add more things to
the
the?
hydraulics? Yeah, never left hydraulics.
All right. Okay. And so then, about how long do you stay there?
I think I was there about 4 weeks for training.
Mm-hmm.
Then they let me come home for about a month, and I went. Then I went over May 1st.
Okay. And then, how did they physically get you out to Vietnam?
I flew on
Okay.
flying. Well, I call it Flying Tiger Airlines. It was Continental Airlines, the plane I went on.
Mm-hmm.
But I flew from Lansing to Seattle, and then from Seattle to Vietnam.
Okay. And from Seattle, did you go via Alaska or something like that, or did you just go straight over?
I think they stopped. Did they go through Japan or Alaska or someplace? They made a stop somewhere along the way. I
Yeah.
can't remember where it was now.
Yeah. There was a standard northern route that would take you to Anchorage and then Japan
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
down.
Yeah.
Sort of one of the ones a lot of people took. What was the mood like on the plane?
Oh, it was just kind of subdued, I guess. You know, we all knew where we were going. We just waiting to get there.
Okay.
Everybody had a lot of anxiety, I suppose, about what you're going to be going into. But I kind of felt like I had this tour in Guam, so I was kind of comfortable with where I was going. But that changes. You know.
Yeah. Now, were there men from different branches of the service together on that plane?
I think these were all Air Force.
Okay. All right. And then where do you land in Vietnam?
We landed in Cam Ranh Bay.
Okay. And what was your first impression of Vietnam when you got there?
Hot, stifling
Did you land during the day or at night?
during the day, yeah.
Okay. And was there anything going on when you landed, or was it quiet?
There was something going on before we landed. We took a big drop in the altitude real quick, and that was, I didn't think it was going to make it. The plane kept going down. Finally it got itself righted and brought it up, and we landed okay. But there wasn't anything going on there, just the busyness of everybody moving here and there. And the terminal I went into, and there's full of Vietnamese people, and they were all squatted on benches and stuff, and it just kind of seemed to be kind of a surreal looking place to be.
Okay, so there's a lot of Vietnamese just on the base in Cam Ranh Bay when you get there. Okay. And then what did they do with you once you land?
I was there about an hour, maybe two, and they got me on a C-130 and flew me up to Tuy Hoa, my base.
Now, where in Vietnam is that?
It's about 160 miles northeast of Saigon,
Okay.
right on the South China Sea.
All right. And then what unit do you join when you get there?
I joined the 31st, I was assigned to the 31st Field Maintenance Squadron, which was part of the 31st Tactical Fighter Wing.
Okay. And did they have F-100s there?
Yes,
Okay. So you actually got to work on what they trained you for?
absolutely, yeah.
Okay. That's
And
not
more.
Yeah. All right. Now describe, first of all, I guess a little bit, just the base facility, kind of what was there and what did you live in and that
It
kind of
was
thing?
a very, very nice base to be on. I mean, if you had to be in Vietnam, that was a good one to be on. And it was, by the time I got there, they had these metal hooches for us to stay in. I can't remember how many guys would stay in those, 40, 80. But they were all sectioned off. And then we had bunkers in between those in case there was incoming. So, but there was, you could walk to wherever you wanted to go, or you could catch a bus eventually. They had buses running all the time with the locals driving those. So we kind of depended on those to get up to the flight line to go to work and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But we had a movie theater. They had a lot of amenities there that, most people don't have.
Yeah. I mean, were the barracks air conditioned or?
No.
Okay. So they're haven't gotten quite that far.
No.
All right. And about how many planes do you think were based there while you were there?
I don't know. I really don't know. I know it was probably well over 100.
Okay, so substantial base. Aside from the F-100s, what else do they have there?
They had C-130s, which were rescue planes. They had, eventually they brought in some AC-119 gunships. When I was about 10 months in the country, they brought those in. And we had various helicopters and different Army spotter planes. We had O2, our our forward air controllers flew O2 bird dogs, so we maintained those also. Little push-pull Cessna. It's kind of like working on a model airplane.
Right. Okay. Now, when you get in there, what kind of reception or welcome do you get when you show up?
Well, it was just kind of, here's another guy here, they just kind of would tell you what you needed to know. If you ask them, and they tell you. The thing that surprised me was when I got there, I was talking to one of the guys, and I asked him what base he came from, and he said home base, and I didn't recognize that as an Air Force base, and he told me he was from the New York Air National Guard, and there was, at that time, we were replacing his unit that had been there for a year, and it was the New York Air National Guard and the 188th Tactical Fighter Squadron out of New Mexico, which is another Guard unit. So those two units were there.
Yeah, and actually, there were not a whole lot of Guard or Reserve units necessarily went to
That just
Vietnam.
surprised me.
Yeah.
I didn't know that they had them there.
Yeah, well, there were some in certain places, and I think it depended on what they could do.
Yeah.
But mostly they relied on draftees. All right. Now, how busy was the base while you were there?
It was very busy. Yeah. If the skies were clear, it was busy constantly. There was constantly aircraft coming and going, taking off, landing. The only time it was curtailed was during inclement weather when we had monsoons and heavy rains and stuff. They couldn't get up there. But most all the time it was real busy.
Okay. And from your perspective, did you have much of a sense of what was going on in the larger war at that point?
No. I knew that we were flying air support for people, and I knew that we had infantry taking care of our perimeter, kind of keeping us secure so we could help them out. You just see, you'd see flares going up at night, and you could see tracers and stuff like that. So you knew there was some things going on, but it never really got real close to us that I could see. They did hit the base with rocket and mortar attack, I think 7 days after I left.
Okay. But while you were there weren't any...
While I was there, I don't remember any incoming rounds. Although we did have some sniper fire. That one of our aircraft was out on a trim pad at night, and they took on some sniper fire. So that ended that nighttime stuff out down the perimeter.
Right. So on the whole, then, it was a fairly quiet tour as far as things went. It was busy. Did you have a sense of what kind of losses the air units were taking?
What kind of losses?
Yeah, I mean, were some of the fighters not coming back?
Oh yeah. I know of several that didn't make it back, and we lost one of our own guys. One of the guys in my shop got shot by our guys. He's working on an aircraft, and they touched off a round in the next revetment over, failing to get the trigger lock on, and took this guy on the side. Didn't kill him, but I never found out, other than the fact he did survive, how he's doing today. Always wondered about him.
Now, were there problems with accidents or faulty maintenance or things, or was...
Yeah, you'd have those. I mean, that's just that's part of war. When you're in a situation like that where you're trying to get things going as rapidly as you can, and people, make mistakes after a while.
Okay. How would you know what kind of group or set of men do you get to know while you're there? Just people doing your particular thing, or more than that?
Most of the guys in my shop, and then all the guys in my hooch, and they were from different career fields too. So I had a guy that did parachutes there, and had guys that were in charge of power equipment, and jet engine guys, and just everybody. All the maintenance people they weren't all separated. They were all grouped together in the hooches.
Okay. How would you characterize the morale of the men that you knew there?
I think it was pretty good. Yeah, for the most part, we did pretty good with it. We were all determined to do the very best we could do to make sure that this pilot got to where he was going and getting back. And we knew that kind of depends on just depends on us to do that.
Okay.
And the guys were very good about what they did.
Okay. Now, there are a lot of stereotypes about Vietnam that don't always fit reality all that well, and sometimes they do. One of them has to do with just drug use. I mean, were you aware of that going on the base, and to what extent?
Yeah. Yeah, I was introduced to marijuana while I was there, and I'd never smoked that before, so that was my introduction over there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it wasn't. I don't think it was real rampant among our guys. I mean, there were some guys that were doing it, obviously, but I saw it in the people that came to work on the base, the Vietnamese men that were working there. One of them he was in charge of a crew of ladies, and he was always blasted.
Mm-hmm. Now, it was like marijuana use and stuff like that. I mean, was that kind of have the same role sort of as drinking beer or whatever, as sort of stress buster?
I suppose it probably was, but I didn't do that. I just drank beer most of the time.
Yeah. I mean, basically, you didn't have a lot of people showing up to work stoned or drunk or anything like that.
No. We did have. I think it happened to every one of us pretty much. So I think of one day, a guy would miss duty because he was drinking, and we had one guy show up on a night shift who was definitely trashed, and he was going home the next day. So we just laid him out on the bench and told him to chill out, and we'll take care of it.
Yeah. So you're really not in a situation where any of that kind of stuff affects your job performance.
No.
Yeah, you're doing that. Okay. Another issue has to do with race relations. I mean, do you have like black guys in your crew? And
yeah, did have, yeah.
And was there? I mean, did they kind of segregate themselves from everybody else, or anything like that?
I don't think so. I think some may have tried to do that, but there was some that did that, and they were attacking people at night, getting guys and beating them up. But that halted after a while, and we had black soldiers in our unit, in our pooch. So some of my best friends,
Mm-hmm.
But we all worked together. We were there for the same purposes. But I know that stuff went on,
Mm-hmm. So it's going on, somewhere on the base, but not necessarily among the guys in your particular unit.
There's always people that have that in them, from wherever they come from,
Mm-hmm.
or their culture, or whatever. That whether they be white or black, they've got this stereotype of people, and they just think that's the way it is,
Mm-hmm. And that was a point in time when there was a lot of tension at home already, and the Black Power movement was going, and so then they're coming over and they bring a certain amount of that stuff with them too. Okay, but again, was that stuff that was kind of around the margins and not really affecting the actual work you did?
Yeah, I didn't really see that much.
Okay, now, did you stay on the base pretty much your whole time, or did you go anywhere else or do anything else?
I made 2 trips into the village, once to go to an orphanage, or twice to go to an orphanage. 3 trips I must have made to go to an orphanage, and then 1 trip to go see a lady. And that didn't work out too good. So.
What did the base have a relationship with the orphanage, or?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, that was through the chaplain, I think. He had that going on, so we'd go in there and take the kids some candy and stuff and visit with them.
And what impression did you have of the Vietnamese civilians who came and worked on the base?
For the most part, they were good. There was a couple that I didn't trust, and that's just the way it was. I wouldn't let them shave me with a straight razor, and I caught one guy stealing our alarm clocks, and that was not a good thing.
Okay. Now, did you have hooch maids cleaning for you or things like that?
Just Vietnamese ladies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did they do your laundry and
They did our laundry. Yeah. Yeah. And I was in charge of paying the gal that did ours, so she'd come to me all the time.
Okay. Did some of the men sort of try to take advantage of the situation, or the women who worked there?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
But did not something that created much of any actual disturbance, or?
No, they did it, on the sly, or secretly, and so, you just don't know when that's going to happen. But because you got people coming and going all the time, it's kind of hard to work that situation out if you're going to be doing something like that with somebody.
Now, do they have a system where the Vietnamese all had to go off the base at night and then come back in the morning and check in?
Yeah, they check them out, big cattle truck, big semi with a flatbed trailer, and they had sidewalls on it. They'd haul them all out of there, bring them all in.
Okay. Now, did you have any sense that there was much by way of Viet Cong activity out in the regions outside the base, or did you not really hear about that?
Well, when I'd see the flares go up at night, and you'd see tracers, and you'd see helicopter gunships out there, you knew something was going on. So that kind of heightened your sense of awareness there.
Yeah.
And with us being in the Air Force, we didn't have access to our weapons. They had them locked up. And they said they'd give them to us if they were being overrun. And that never made me feel comfortable.
Right.
That's a bad time to be distributing weapons.
Okay. Now, as far as you know, did the base get probed by sappers or anything like that while you were there?
Not while I was there. Prior to me getting there, they were.
Okay. And then, did you get an R&R while you were there?
I did.
Where'd you go?
I went to Australia.
Okay. Now, did you pick that, or was available?
I picked it.
Okay.
But you had to have 10 months in country before you could go.
Okay. Where did you go in Australia?
I went to Sydney. Yeah. Me and 2 other guys from Michigan that were my good buddies, so we all went together.
Okay. And what's the appeal of going to Australia rather than Hong Kong or someplace?
Oh, just to see like American women.
Or all
And we thought it was summertime over there, but it really wasn't. It was winter there when we went in March, I think it was. So it was kind of, the idea of going down the beach kind of went away. It was kind of chilly.
Okay.
But we did experience some good things there.
Yeah. How did the Australians treat the American servicemen over there?
Very good. Very good. They were very warm and welcoming. Yeah.
Okay. Now, the time you're over there, for that matter, before that, when you were still out on Sawyer, I mean, how aware were you of the anti-war movement that was going on back at home?
I was pretty well aware of it, especially when I got back, and that Kent State thing happened a few days afterwards.
But then, while you were there or before you went, I mean, did you have a reaction or a response to that, or?
About the anti-war
Yeah.
stuff, I didn't really care. It wasn't my job, My job was to do what I do, and whatever they want to do, that's their business. As long as they don't infringe on my right to do my job.
Right. All right. Now, over the course of the year that you spent in Vietnam, are there any particular incidents or things that kind of stand out in your memory?
Yeah, the guy in my shop that got shot, that stands up. And I had one incident where I was down the intake of an F-100 changing a pump, and it's 14 feet down in there, kind of confined space. And I heard this air motor start up outside, and that's an indication they're getting ready to rotate the engine. So that made me real excitable. You can imagine I come flying out of there. I asked that crew chief what was going on. He said, I'm just testing this thing out. I said, I'm down this intake. I said, I don't want you testing it out. That doesn't make me feel real comfortable at all. So we had an agreement that he wouldn't do that anymore. But that was kind of a big deal. And then the aircraft that would crash, we'd have a lot of them crash, nose gear. One plane crashed off the coast, and they brought the remains back in. It was just a mess, And you knew that you lost guys then that just kind of put a little bit of cast a little shadow over the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're reminded you really are in a war between that and the occasional fireworks outside and the rest of that. Now, yourself, did you basically feel pretty safe most of the time you were there?
Most of the time. I guess I probably didn't think about it. But when I had moments to reflect, especially at night with those flares going off at night, illumination flares, and impending, something may happen, and we have no way of defending ourselves, that was not very good.
Yeah. How much understanding did you have of why we were in Vietnam in the first place?
Not a whole lot. Just figured they were there to stop communism, and that's what they were doing, and that's what I was willing to do.
Okay. And over the course of the year that you were there, did you have any sense of how the war was going? And did you think we were winning, or could you not tell?
It kind of comes and goes. There wasn't a lot of information like that, that we were doing this or doing that. I just pretty much focused on the daily task, So.
Okay. And as your year kind of starts to wind down, are you counting the days to get to leave, or?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what's the process then for getting you back out of Vietnam?
You have to get I'm trying to think of what they call that. Get your flight information that you have your flight call, you know. And then they fly you back down to Cam Ranh, and you get on the plane and you fly out of there.
Okay. And what's the mood on the plane when you take off?
Real tense. But after we got out over the water, you know, we got away, up and away. It was a big cheer let out, you know.
All right. And where do you land in the States when you get back?
We landed in Seattle.
Okay. And then what kind of reception do they have for you when you get there?
Well, they actually held us on the plane for about 45 minutes in Seattle.
Okay.
And I don't know what that was about, but it was, you know, a little disturbing because I had a plane to catch to get to Detroit and then not Detroit, to Chicago and then to Lansing. So I was concerned I was going to miss that. But just being able to sit on the airplane and look out and see all that green, it was wonderful, but we wanted to get out and smell it, you know.
Mm-hmm. Now, were you actually at the SeaTac airport, or were you at an air base?
Yeah, I think it was McCord Air Base.
Yeah. Okay. But then from there, you would have had to get over to SeaTac or something to then fly. But you actually had plane reservations already set to get you home?
I think I did, yeah.
Okay. Now, was there did you have to do much out processing at McCord, or did they just
I
send
didn't
you away?
know.
Okay.
No, just got right out there and got over there, the airport, and got on the plane and flew to Chicago.
Okay. Now, as you're going through the airports now, are you encountering any protesters or things like that?
I didn't see a whole lot of that.
Okay. And were you going in uniform or in civilian clothes?
I was in uniform.
Okay. So people don't look at you funny or anything like that. You
If
just
they did, I didn't care.
okay.
I don't think I was aware of it. You know, I was focused on where I was going and
Yeah.
who I was going to see.
Different people report different things, and for a lot of them it's no big deal. For some of them it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, at this point, do you still have time left on your enlistment, or are you just about done?
Oh, when I got back, yeah, I had time left.
Okay. So you got to leave home, and then you have to report somewhere again.
Yeah. Excuse me, I had to come back to KI Sawyer.
Okay. And did you just go back to doing what you had done before you left?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Okay. And did it seem at all different after having spent a year in Vietnam, or could you just pick up where you left off?
I didn't, I felt kind of confident in my abilities, you know, what I was doing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then when do you complete your enlistment?
I completed it and I got discharged in December of 1970.
Okay.
They let me out early to go to school. But on the discharge, it says convenience of the government, so
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what all that means.
All right. And you mentioned that the Kent State incident had happened sort of shortly after you got back. I mean, what did you learn about it, or what kind of reaction was there where you were?
Well, me personally, I thought that that's good. You know, if those guys were coming at them, they needed to shoot them. But, you know, I've since had a little change of heart. So.
I mean, ideally, you don't shoot protesters.
Yeah.
No. Okay.
Unless they are threatening.
Right.
Yeah. That's kind of an overreaction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But anyway, it certainly attracted a lot of attention. And then did you follow news about the war after you were back?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And when basically things fell apart, were you surprised, or did you see it coming? Or
Yeah, I kind of saw that coming because they were just, I don't think they ever really let the military fight the war. You know, it was being fought from Washington, and that's not a good place to be doing that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now you say you went to school then after you got back?
Yeah, I got discharged in December, and I went to LCC. Started going to LCC, taking automotive classes.
Okay, so Lansing Community College.
Yep.
Okay. And then did you go into automotive work after that, or what did you do?
I went back to work at GM
Mm-hmm.
and continued to work in there, and eventually I got into a mechanical job at GM in the engineering
Okay.
facility.
Okay. And then did you have college beyond the community college, or did you just develop your skills on the job?
Just developed them on the job.
Okay.
Well, I took an apprenticeship through GM too, so
All right.
continued that.
Now, to look back at your time on in the service, what do you think you took out of that, or how did that affect you?
Well, it helped me to learn how to work with people, you know, how to be a part of, and you know, and rely on people, and so that's one of the biggest things I think, and that most people are trying to do the right thing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you just have to join up with them and hang in there, and that was, and it gave me the ability to know that I can solve problems that come up. You know, I don't have to quit. I can always continue and try again, try differently, list the help of somebody else. Take and use your resources. You know, they're always available.
So for you, I mean, it was largely a positive experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vietnam was good for me. The whole military thing was good for me because it gave me structure and discipline, and I needed that.
All right. Well, you actually tell your story very efficiently, which is just as well since we were on the clock this morning. So I'd just like to thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
You're welcome.